Y'all, it's been almost a year since my podcast joined Seneca Women Podcast Network and iHeartMedia, and I want to celebrate with all of you, my listeners who have been joining me in the Her living room every week. I know we can't gather in person. I'm not even sure there's like a house that would be big enough to have a big enough living room for all of us, but I'm glad we have our podcast living room here, and I would love to hear from you. I'm working on an episode to celebrate my Her anniversary, and I would love to include you in the episode. Here's what you do. You go to speakpipe.com/her with Amena Brown and leave me a 1-minute voice message telling me your name and where you're from, if you feel comfortable sharing. And then tell me your favorite episode of the podcast and why you loved it. Leave me a message by Friday, September 3rd, and you could possibly be included on a future episode. But don't worry about writing all of this down. The link will be included in the show notes and the episode description as well. I can't wait to hear from you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We are still in a friendship mode here, and I wanted to make sure I got a chance to answer your questions. So this is part 2 of me answering your questions about friendship. Man, friendship can be really, a part of me wants to say complicated, but complicated sounds so negative, doesn't it? It could be complicated, I guess. That's true. But it can also have a lot of layers to it, right? So here's me. I'm going to take my best shot at answering your questions. Question number 1 from a listener: are there truly friendships for a season? Or is that a cop-out from having hard boundary or conflict conversations? Well, we're starting off our episode with a zinger. Are there truly friendships for a season, or is that a cop-out from having hard conversations, boundary conversations, or conflict conversations? I am of the belief that sometimes friendships are only for a season. I know I've had some. And I actually think both things can be true. I think there are some friendships that don't continue on in our lives because we didn't have the hard conversation, or because we didn't, I was going to say embrace the conflict, but y'all, I really hate conflict so bad. I don't really want to embrace it. That's not the verb I want to put there, but because we didn't face the conflict and talk through it. But I do think you can have friends that there is a season of time where you may have really needed that person in your life, or they may have really needed you in their life. And then you grow and you find that maybe your values are in different places now, or the directions of your lives are in different places now. And that can totally make a difference in whether a friendship continues or not. But I'm also of the belief that not every friendship in your life is meant to be like a long-term friendship. And I think that's okay. I think there are times that we're trying to force a friendship to be long-lasting when that friendship maybe was never supposed to be that. So I do think that there's a both and that's present here. I would say when it makes sense, I think you should have a conversation. And this is going to come up in some of my other answers to your questions as well. So if there is a friendship and you feel it fizzling out or something, I think when you can have the conversation that you should. But I think it's important to know that a conversation is not going to fix all friendships. That sometimes that conversation will actually tell you that the friendship should be over, or that the friendship needs space, that the two of you need space away from each other. And the other hard part about having conversations with friends is having to realize that not every friend will be in a place where they are ready to have that type of conversation or receive whatever it is you have to say. And of course, there are some friendships that are so unhealthy that you may get to a point where it's not even healthy to try to have a conversation with that person. So I am of the opinion that there are friendships that are only meant to be for a season in your life. I don't think you can always know that when that person first walks into your life, but I do think that's true. And although friendship and dating are not the same thing, you'll find me referring back to dating a little bit here because I think that some of the parallel lessons are there. And so I want to make mention of that. In the same way that I don't think every friendship is supposed to be lifelong in your life, I don't think that every person you date is somebody that you're supposed to marry. I think that sometimes you are supposed to date that person and maybe there was something you're supposed to learn. Maybe there was something they're supposed to learn. Maybe there was just something good or not good to the season of time that you knew that person. But it doesn't mean that every person you go to coffee with, go to dinner with, go to a movie with has to be your lifelong partner or your lifelong spouse. And I think that can also be true of friendships. But I think when we think about it that way, I don't think that has to be viewed as a cop out necessarily, because I think if we think about it like, yeah, there will be some friendships that won't last forever, then for me, that puts me in more of a place to be able to be grateful for the time that I do have someone in my life. If it was good to have had them around, sometimes there are people that it wasn't good to have had them around. I am not thankful for the painful experience, but I like who I became in spite of it, or I like who I became after having to endure that, right? So I think in a way that can help us to hold our friendships with open hands. And that means that we are open to however those friendships develop and grow and however we develop and grow in the process, right? Next question. What do you do when you always feel like you're one ring out of a circle of friends? My. I have a little theory, and I don't think I'm the only person with this theory, and I don't think I'm the person that came up with the theory, but I believe in the theory of three. And I do think when you're in a friendship group and there are three or more people in the friendship group, I feel like there's always going to be someone that feels like they are left out at some point in how the friendship continues on. And I think if you know that and you're in sort of a friend group, that can maybe help you to not feel freaked out. Sometimes in groups of friends, it's just a seasonal thing that may happen, or it could be something going on in different people's lives that makes that friendship sort of lean one way where this person feels left out, right? I'll give you two examples. When I was in college, my mom moved from the neighborhood we lived in when I was in high school to a different neighborhood. So when I got home from college, instead of me being like 5 minutes away from most of my friends, I was 25 minutes away. I didn't have my license yet. I didn't have a car. So I wasn't able to be like, hey, you're 5 minutes away. Like, come by and pick me up before y'all go over to the whatever. Like, they were really going to have to love me to drive across town to see me. And so in a way, I know there were some things during those breaks home from college that I was left out of. But that was simply because my location had moved and that changed things. It wasn't necessarily that my friends didn't want to kick it. It was just that they had to think through a lot more logistics to kick it with me than they did before when we all lived kind of near the same area or in the same neighborhood, right? And the other example that I was going to give y'all is just in thinking about when we think about the theory of 3 or 4 or more friends. This isn't even one that's from my personal life, but those of you that are fans of the TV show Insecure on HBO, shout out to Issa Rae. On that show, there is a group of 4 friends there. And one of the friends got pregnant, but she was the first of all 4 friends to get pregnant and have a baby. And with her getting pregnant, that shifted the whole friend dynamic because the 4 of them were used to going out together to parties, to the club, to have drinks. And she's got her mind on different things as she's preparing to become a new mom. She's processing that very differently. And so there were certain ways that intentionally or unintentionally, she was beginning to be left out of the group activities, not because they loved her less or, didn't want to hang out with her, but because she's at a point in her life where she's getting ready for a big change. And she has these 3 friends that are not experiencing that change, right? And so just giving those couple of examples that there can be just these natural things that happen that are not malicious, they're not malicious behavior of anyone in the group, but they're just the natural swings of time and life changing that make it so that we feel like we're left out of that ring of a circle of friends. So here's what I think in answer to your question, dear listener. I think you have to ask yourself, what do you really want the most out of a friendship? And what are the reasons that you are possibly one ring out of a circle of friends? Are you new to this group of friends and everyone else has been there longer than you? Are these friends where you all used to hang out together and used to do these different things, but you're finding that they're going places and you didn't know about it and you don't know why they didn't tell you? So I feel like there are two things that you can do here, and why I said you should ask yourself what you want out of a friendship. And I think this will also come up in some of the other answers here. You should ask yourself this question because sometimes we want something out of a friendship that we may have a friend that just isn't at a place where they can meet that expectation or provide that what we might want. We may want to hang out more and they, for various and sundry reasons, may not be able to provide that. So then we have to ask ourselves, am I really asking something of someone that they can't give or don't want to give? And does that mean that I should branch out and find some other people that I might can get to know, kick it with, hang with, build community with, that may be at more of a place where they can do some of the things that I want to do or like to do with my friends, So my two answers here is what to do. One, if these are people that you feel close to, that you feel trusting to have a conversation with, have some communication. Say to them, hey, I noticed y'all's pictures on Instagram and y'all went over there and I would have loved to go. Is there a reason why y'all didn't invite me? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, by opening up these communications, the thing about effective communication is it doesn't always feel good. It's helpful in the end, but it doesn't always feel good. So who knows what your friends may say? They may say something that's true, but it's hard for you to hear, or they may say something that is really hurtful and is them not being considerate of you. But either way, by you asking the question, you're getting communication so that you know what to do moving forward, right? And think about branching out. Sometimes we can get so focused on what we don't have or so focused on what the people in our lives are not doing that we don't realize we have an opportunity to get to know some other folks that may be more on the same page with us or maybe more in the same phase of life we are. I know I've had friends that have experienced it where most of their friends got married and they weren't married, right? And so they experienced that shift of their friends sort of, doing whatever they felt they needed to do to go into this new stage of their life being married. But if you're the one friend or the couple of friends in that group of friends that isn't booed up, doesn't look like you're about to get married anytime soon, or maybe you're not even interested in getting married or whatever, those things can cause these shifts. It's not like if you get married, you can look at your single friends and be like, hurry up and get married so we can still be friends. Maybe it means that there are other friends that both of you need in your lives, friends that are in whatever your phase of life is, so that you can have that way to identify with them. And I'm just using that as an example, but we watch that in all sorts of changes people have with their jobs and sometimes with becoming parents. When people move, like the location point that I brought up, sometimes when you move, do you want to hold on to your friends that you knew in the other city you used to live in? You sure do, but now you live in a new place. And maybe there are ways to meet some people that live there also, right? So there can be a both and when you can get the both and, try for it. And if the both and doesn't go, then some other either or options that you have as well. So I hope that answered your question about what to do when you are one ring out of a circle of friends. Okay, question number 3. What to do when friendships end, when you initiate the hangouts and just keep getting ghosted? First of all, I want to give a special shout out to the MTV show Ghosted. Y'all need to watch it because it's great. And there are 2 hosts on there. I believe it's Rachel Lindsay from The Bachelor. And I feel like the guy who's hosting with her. His name is Travis. But anyway, shout out to that TV show because it's literally like a show of people who got ghosted. And like the ghostee goes to Travis and Rachel and tells them like, here's what happened. I don't know why so-and-so ghosted me. And sometimes it's a friend. Sometimes it's somebody they dated. And then Travis and Rachel like track down the person that did the ghosting and they end up actually meeting up in person. And I think they did some during the pandemic where they were meeting up on Zoom and the person who did the ghosting has to explain to the person why they got ghosted. And it was a variety of reasons, right? Sometimes it was that the other person had really done something very hurtful. And so the person just ghosted. Sometimes it was because the person ghosting had something really like terrible going on in their lives. And sometimes the person ghosting was just a terrible person. And so those options are the same in this situation. Okay. I want to admit to y'all that I have been a friend who has ghosted another friend. I have never ghosted a close friend, but I have had some friends that I wasn't super duper close with, but I would say we were friends. We talked, we hung out, and I have ghosted at least twice. And I'm going to tell you why in both situations. And maybe this will bring some understanding to you, or maybe you will be like, wow, done with this podcast because Amena ghosted her friends. But it's only happened to me twice that I can think of right now. One of them was really, like the reason that I ghosted this friend really had very little to do with them personally. They didn't do anything wrong. There wasn't anything that I was like, I don't want to see them anymore. It was honestly like a whole lot of really hard personal stuff that I had going on at the time. And so both of these friends that I ghosted, this one was more of a very new friend. We had hung out a little bit and we had a great time hanging out. I really enjoyed their company. However, I realized at that time that I was really in like an unhealthy place in myself. And so I started back going to therapy. And as I was going to therapy, I realized, oh my gosh, I have this new friend. I really jumped in there with this new friend, way too deep, because I don't know if any of you have ever experienced the kind of depression or even grief or sadness where you almost feel like your body is turned inside out. You feel like all your tender parts are on the outside of you. And all you can do when you meet people is whatever is going on with you. I was really at that point, but I didn't realize I was at that point until I got back into therapy. And once I got back into therapy, it took me some months of therapy before I realized, oh my gosh, I can't be what I was in that friendship. And now, because I went to this depth, this friend is expecting that of me. Now, if I were in a healthier place, I would have been able to go back to that friend and say, hey, I actually really like taking it with you. But I had a lot of really hard stuff happen to me right at the time that we were starting to be friends, which is why I was telling you all the things that you probably didn't even want to hear really. And I do want to stay friends, but I kind of want to start over if we can do that and just really start over, giving ourselves some space and time to be friends without me having to jump into all this stuff that's happening while I'm healing up. That's how I would have said that. But I really wasn't in a healthy enough place to even say that at the time. So I ghosted them in an effort to try to take care of myself and get myself into a healthy place, and I'm sure that that was probably really upsetting for them. But I bring that up to say that sometimes when people ghost, they are ghosting not for reasons of anything being wrong with you. It may be some stuff that's going on with them. And people can be going through such emotional and really hard things that they don't even all the way have the language in that moment to tell you why they're ghosting you or to tell you why they can't be present, right? The other time that I remember ghosting a friend, and this was a short-term ghosting because some time did pass, again, going back into therapy, where I was able to finally articulate to them why I had to ghost and this is what was happening. But I had another friendship where I really did like spending time with the friend and we hung out. We were probably friends a bit longer than the previous example I gave you. But as I realized I was going through this really hard thing, there were times that I noticed them not being sensitive to that. And I at first like accepted that they weren't being sensitive to it because you know how sometimes people can say things that are insensitive, but it doesn't mean their hearts are coming from a malicious place. But then over time, they keep saying the insensitive thing to you. And so even though you're looking at them like you don't think they mean to be mean, but it doesn't mean that that's not processing to you as mean, right? Or as hurtful at the very least. And so I went through a period of time where really I ghosted that friend because there were some insensitive things being said. And also because the things they were saying that were insensitive were hurting me because there were like some bigger issues going on with me that were making that very painful. And so I ghosted again because I needed some time to figure out in myself, okay, what do I need to do? What's happening with me? How do I care for myself? And I actually talked to my therapist about the fact that I had ghosted this friend. And as we were working through my other stuff, I did finally get to a point where I told my therapist, I think I'm ready to communicate to them. And so I did reach out to them and I was able to tell them, like, this is what was happening during that time. This is where I am right now. I am in a bit of a better place, but I'm still in a tough place. And during this time, I need to really cling to my family and my super close friends. And I'm also sure that that was hurtful to them to hear me say, and basically to hear me say, like, I don't see us reconnecting as friends. I'm sure that was hard to hear, much harder than I can imagine right now saying it to you. But I tell that to you, to the person who asked this question, and to people who may be listening that have that question too, as the person who has ghosted, to give you a perspective that in my case, it really was a lot of just hard things. And these were not super close friends of mine that we had even gotten to the point where we could have that type of honest conversation. So here are my tips I can give you from someone who has ghosted and been ghosted. Try, if you can, to establish communication with the person. If you keep getting ghosted, try to say to them, hey, I feel like whenever we try to like schedule something, I feel like you're saying you're not available and maybe that's your schedule, but is it something else going on that we need to talk about? Are you okay? Try to have that communication. However, accept that even the communication may still mean that that person ghosting or not being in a friendship with you may be the best thing for them and may be the best thing for you, and that's hard to hear, right? Because a lot of times when we're looking to have a conversation with someone, we're thinking like, okay, I'm going to have this conversation. We're going to come to some agreement. We're going to either go back to the way things were, or the path forward is still going to be us forward together. And it just may not be. So I think when we're thinking about what to do when friendships end, when you keep trying to make the connection and you keep getting ghosted, is I think you have to, first of all, accept that sometimes people are going through things that they may not be ready to talk with you about. Also accept that they may not have the capacity to go through what they're going through and maintain a friendship with you. Also accept that you may never find out why they ghosted. So you may have to find a way to give yourself closure. And this is also true for dating. We love closure. I love closure, but sometimes people are going to be unable or unwilling to give you that closure. And finally, I want to say sometimes people ghost. I'm going to try to say this without cussing, but sometimes people ghost because they're terrible. They're terrible. They're terrible. They knew it was mean. They were selfish. They chose themselves. And that's why they ghosted. And that also happens too. And that means from that person, you may not ever get communication about why they did that. And even if they did communicate to you, the reason why may still be asinine to you. So consider these things. Try communication if you can, but also accept that even that communication may not fix the friendship. And even that communication may not help you to not still feel some type of way about why they ghosted in the first place. Last question. Do you have any recommendations for drawing a line between A, I want to help my friend, and B, I don't have to be the main person who helps my friend? Sometimes I wonder if my helping is selfish because I feel like I need to be the main one to help. I want to tell you, dear listener, that I have been there. Okay. I am, if you are into Enneagram, folks, I am what would be considered an Enneagram 2, which I nicknamed the Auntie-ogram because I feel like the 2 is the person that wants to care for people, is good at caretaking as well. And here's the situation. I just want to tell you in short that you don't have to be the main person who helps your friend. And you're not being a good friend if you expect to be the main person that helps your friend. Okay. I'm going to give you an example. My best friend was having her first kid. Okay. And I was so excited. And we were very, very close to each other. So I was checking in on her and kind of monitoring how things were going with her. And I really, truly, in my heart, just love to do things for the people I love. Like, I love it, love it, love it. It really brings a lot of joy to me. And so I was on tour at the time that she was getting towards the end of her pregnancy. And we were hoping that her baby was going to be born the beginning of April because I wasn't going to be back from tour until then. And her baby came a couple of weeks before that. And so I was so happy for her and really, really devastated for myself because I wanted to be there when she had our baby. I wanted to be there when they were headed home. I wanted to be there to do whatever I could for her and her husband and her little girl that was now going to be my goddaughter. Like, I wanted to do everything, but I couldn't do anything because I was on tour in the middle of nowhere, basically Midwest somewhere. And I wasn't going to be home for another few days. And so that meant other people had to help them when it was time for her to come home from the hospital with the baby. Other people had to help them in those first few days that they were home and getting them food and all that. You know, I did what I could from afar, but I couldn't be there in person. And that was really a good lesson for me to remember, first of all, and thankfully, my best friend had a village. She had a whole bunch of people that love her, that love her husband, that love this little girl we were all just getting to meet. And so I did not have to be her village. I was a part of her village. And for people who love taking care of the people that they love, it can be hard to accept that your friends don't need you to be everything to them. And sometimes if you are a person that can be the caretaker friend, you have a need inside yourself to be needed. And so if you look around and you watch your friend's village caring for them and you weren't there to do it, then you're like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean my friend doesn't need me? That's not true. That means your friend needs all of you to do whatever your part is. Okay. The second thing I want to bring up is, as a person who loves to really take care of my friends, I noticed that sometimes I would put a lot more focus in being the main person caring for them because I was avoiding doing what I needed to do to take care of myself. And I found that when I was actually spending time giving myself the same energy that was so easy for me to give to other people, when I gave that energy to myself, then I realized, first of all, I actually don't have as much time to give all my time away to everyone else. When I give some time to myself, I have like this time to give. And that taught me to really focus less on doing the most for people when I love them and focusing more on the fact that my good enough is good enough for them. That whatever I can give them, whatever time I have, they are happy to get that from me, and they don't need me to run myself ragged for them. And I don't need to run myself ragged because I'm not the only person in the world that loves my friend, even though I love my friend till the cows come home, you know? So make sure if you do fall in that category where you're the person who loves to attend to everyone and care for everybody, really think to yourself, you know, am I giving that same energy to myself? Would I care for myself in that same way? And lastly, just remember, when you are helping a friend, you want to help them because you want to. You want to help them because you love them, because it's good for you to help them, not because of your own ego or your own insecurities or your own sort of internal need to be needed or wanted, right? You don't have to be the martyr for your friends. And if you are in a healthy friendship with friends who love you for you and not just the things that you do for them, your friends don't want you to run yourself ragged to help them when they move and when they have their baby, when they start their business. They want you around because of who you are, not just what you do for them. And if you find yourself in friendships where the people only care about you because of the gifts you give or because of the time you spend or because of the things you did for them, then I do want you to evaluate that and reevaluate that so that you can have some friends in your life that want you for you, not just all the things that you do for them. Thank y'all so much for asking such great questions. We've got one more episode coming your way. I will answer the rest of your questions. We'll get a chance to talk about what it's like when you feel like you're in an imbalanced friendship. We're going to talk about how you know as a Black person if a friend who is not Black can hold your experiences. And we're going to talk about how to end a friendship if it's no longer serving you. So we've got a few other things to discuss, as well as next episode, I'm going to give you some tips on how to make and keep friends as a grown adult. All right, I'm sending y'all love today, and I'll talk to y'all next week. Her with Amena Brown is produced by Matt Owen for Soul Graffiti Productions as a part of the Seneca Women Podcast Network in partnership with iHeartRadio. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.